Hi, my name's Catherine Millett, and this week I'm doing something a little bit different. I'm talking about how I get to the start of a project, i.e. all the thought processes that go on before I actually get round to building something. I'm going to be talking about how do I find inspiration and the steps I go through from once I've got inspiration on a project to bringing it to reality. Where do I find inspiration? Well, it's often real life. I might go on holiday somewhere. I mean, I got into railway modelling because I went on holiday to Mevagissey, saw a model railway there and thought, oh, I enjoyed that when I was a kid and got back into it. Start of a large portion of my life now. But I recently went to Statfold Barn, which is a private railway, and the gentleman there has loads and loads of small locos. They have a Fiji, which is from a sugarcane plantation. You think, oh, a sugarcane plantation, that would be really fascinating to model. So you come across all these things. I went on holiday to Vietnam, and in Hanoi, the trains run through the street, and you think, oh, that would be fascinating to model. Maybe just a diorama of it, but actually just that whole street section with life, with trains running alongside it. So there's some really interesting things you can see in real life. And of course, if you're me and you catch a train to work regularly and you go through trains, you go on holidays to trains, then you see a lot of trains in real life, then it's easy to translate those into projects in your modelling. The other area that I get a lot of inspiration from is TV and the movies. Now, I started down a whole new sci-fi space theme based on the Netflix programme The Expanse, which apparently is a set of books, and The Expanse is set in the not too distant future in the solar system. So a little bit different to most sci-fi because it's in this solar system. And I was really inspired to go back to kind of my childhood when I wanted to be an astronaut. That was before I realised when I was about 16 that it wasn't really like Star Trek. But I always wanted to grow up and become an astronaut and go into space. That was like, if anybody asked me, that's what I always said. And it made me think back to there because the asteroid belt isn't that far away. And at the same time, a couple of years ago, I've been thinking about 6th scale models. FichtenFoo, who is an all-time favourite of mine, he does great, interesting stuff, Industria Mechanica. And he did a few 6th scale figures, and I thought, oh, it's a really interesting scale for figures. If I'm looking at stuff for railways, then realistically, TVs and movies don't have a lot of inspiration in that area. I tend to look on Flickr, Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook has some photos. I'm less of a fan of Facebook because it's hard to go back and look at old photos. So if you get into somebody, you know, going back through their old photos is a real drag. So go look at websites. But the main thing that I've been inspired by on railways recently has been slate quarries. So I've been looking at slate quarries on Flickr, on websites. There's some great websites like Penmorfa, which are dedicated to the Welsh slate quarry industry. But I've got a Flickr faves, which is almost all Dinorwic, which is a quarry I want to model. And I've even narrowed it down to which level I want to model, the Pengarrett level, and which section and all that sort of stuff. So I spent a lot of time with those up on my screen, my big screen, with them sat there while I'm doing other stuff, so I can just look at the details and take them in and think about it. And I find that looking at photos really helps. Where it's places that there aren't a lot of photos, then I might buy a specialist book. So Argent, Last of the Swamp Rats inspired me to do a whole swamp railway. And then I got to a lot of New Haven books because I model in New Haven for my model railway. So tons of books for that. And you just need to get them out and keep looking at them to get inspiration, but also to make sure you get your geography right, whether you've got enough hills and enough flat areas, the colour of the grass, you know, all that kind of stuff, because I don't live in those areas. The final couple of places that I might go to for inspiration is YouTube. There's people like Towan who do excellent modelling and they can inspire you to go and try and use something. I've been inspired on a lot of the areas I do by seeing a great layout at an exhibition. And I don't want to copy it because I believe inspiration should be inspiration. You shouldn't just copy it blindly because otherwise I feel that you've kind of lost your own design into it. But it's great, you look at something and you go, wow, that guy did that, that was really fascinating. How can I apply that in my layout, which is a different area and a different time? But what I liked about his layout was how he used light, or how he used his backdrop, or his colours, or some of the build techniques that he had, that feel that he had. Can I incorporate those into my existing layout? So inspiration, Troels Kirk, huge inspiration to me, and I actually went to visit his layout. And his use of colour was hugely inspiring, and he actually did a DVD on it. And he had quite a limited range of colours that he used, and they tended to be more on the sludgier side rather than really bright. And his layout was really cohesive as a result. And just that one thing I picked up from seeing his layout and his DVD made me realise how I could apply that in my own layout. So now I use more or less the same colours through a lot of it, the same ground foam, so that it all ties together and looks cohesive. So I've got inspiration, slate quarry. Really excited, I want to do a slate quarry. So what do I do next? Well, I carry on looking at all those websites I've been talking about, Flickr, Pinterest, Instagram. Flickr's the main one for slate quarries. I went out and bought tons of specialist books because I'm now in research mode. And loads of specialist books on the slate quarry industry, Dinoic books, anything like that at all really. How did it work? What did they do? I might look at specialist societies like 16mm to see how they do it, because I'm thinking of a 16mm size, and I'm also thinking of doing it in 009. So you look at the 009 Society, what do they do? You might see layouts at exhibitions that are in the area you want to do with the sort of locos that you want to model. So I spend a lot of time researching, how did that blonding work? How did they do this? How did they do that? In my quarry, what would they have done? Sometimes you can go down a real rabbit hole in research, but this is the phase I almost love the most, learning something new. So once I've been through all that and I've looked at every YouTube channel and on it, and there's some great historical stuff you can find on YouTube as well. I've looked at all those sites. I start thinking, well, what do I actually need for this? So I spend a lot of time looking at the techniques that I need to build my diorama. And I think, how big is it going to be? What do I want in there? Which particular techniques do I need to learn? And I go out and I start practicing them and thinking about them and checking out what everybody else does, seeing if there's a better technique. And for this, there's some great YouTube channels out there. For terrain, I'll go to Terranscapes. I think they do some amazing techniques on rock, which has been really helpful. And I might go to Towan if I'm looking at stuff. He does some amazing stuff. So I hope you found that useful. I hope it wasn't just me whittering on for 20 minutes. It is a part of the process I probably enjoy more than building sometimes. I like building stuff, but I really, really love planning and researching stuff and finding out everything about it. It is the bit that really gets me buzzing.